The police are probing a double murder and shooting in Burger Gully, Kingston East Sunday night. Gunmen reportedly struck sometime after 10 p.m. when they opened fire at a house, hitting the occupants. It is reported that a man and an 8-year-old boy were killed. The man has only been identified as Joel, while the child has been identified as DJ Dawes. A third person, a male, remains hospitalized. The community is tense. The police are patrolling the area. As it was done in 2 parts. So this is an historical journey to freedom. Welcome to our YouTube video, where we embark on a fascinating journey through history to explore the emancipation of slavery in Jamaica during the 19th century. Join us as we delve into the events that led to the abolishment of slavery and the impact it had on the lives of millions of enslaved Africans. Part 1. The roots of slavery in Jamaica. To understand the significance of the emancipation, we must first grasp the roots of slavery in Jamaica. We'll take a glimpse into the dark history of the transatlantic slave trade and its devastating consequences on the African people brought to the Caribbean. The voices of abolitionists echoed throughout Europe and the Americas, demanding an end to the inhumane practice of slavery. We'll explore the courageous efforts of those activists in Jamaica and abroad who played a pivotal role. The voices of the abolitionists echoed through Europe and the Americas, demanding the end of the inhumane practice of slavery. And this was both in Jamaica and abroad. They played a pivotal role in shaping public opinion. Names of those who worked tirelessly to see this emancipation proclaimed are Olado, Equiano, Thomas Clarkson, William Wilberforce, Toussaint L'Ouverture, Elizabeth Hayrick, William Cowper, Mary Prince Granville Sharp. Jamaica, it's mainly Thomas Clarkson, William Wilberforce, and Granville Sharp. And we cannot forget, of course, Samuel Sharp, born 1801 to 1832. Sharp was an enslaved man who was born on a plantation. His parents were enslaved, and as he grew to adulthood, he became a popular Baptist preacher and an outspoken anti-slavery critic. In 1831, Samuel Sharp conceived a radical plan to end slavery in Jamaica by having the slave strike on December 28 and refusing to work until wages were negotiated. The Baptist War, also known as the Sam Sharp Rebellion and the Christmas Rebellion, the Christmas Uprising, and the Great Jamaican Slave Revolt of 1831 to 1832, was an 11-day rebellion that started on December 25th, 1831, and involved up to 60,000 of the 300,000 slaves in the colony of Jamaica. A select group of enslaved people in northwest Jamaica began murmuring to each other about the business. To mention the fledgling enterprise in the presence of a white master was a ticket to torture and likely death by hanging, so everyone took precautions to swear new recruits to secrecy. With a few months, more than 60,000 enslaved people had heard about the effort through well-wired plantation networks. Then, on the night of December 27, 1831, the business opened. The first signal fires were lit in the hills above Montego Bay, and soon plantation houses went up in flames across the richest West Indian colony of the British Empire. White Jamaica found itself contending with its biggest insurrection ever. It took 5 weeks for a British military crackdown to restore quiet. To the end, the rebellion end would not be a lasting defeat. Much of the British public was already disgusted by slavery. The price of maintaining it seems to be endless wars overseas, and after the Jamaica Rebellion, political pressure built. Within 18 months of the first fire, slavery was abolished throughout the British Empire. The enslaved in Jamaica were notoriously some of the most poorly treated enslaved persons across the British Empire, facing heavy abuse and very little power or freedom even for the enslaved. Most of them were illiterate and knew very little of life outside the plantation. Despite all of these obstacles against them, word slowly went around through an enslaved Baptist preacher, Samuel Sharp, about the hope of freedom. Educated other enslaved persons with two key ideas. The first being that freedom was a God-given right for all men and not just white men. The second important piece of information they gained was that the majority of England was against the slave trade and was calling for emancipation. These ideas would carry them through the rebellion. On Christmas Day of 1831, a peaceful protest began. The slaves refused to work unless they were given working wages and free time. The plantation owners refused these demands. As a result, the spark of rebellion was lit, starting with a fire at Kingston estate that carried through across neighboring plantations. Jamaica was up in flames with the uprising on December 27, 1831, that carried through into January of 1832. 2 more months of sporadic uprising caused British troops to come to gain order again. This uprising gave them the purpose and a clear fight. For those on the fence about the issue, the idea of England having to constantly be at war to stabilize such uprisings would push them to fight for emancipation as well. 18 months after the first fires of the rebellion, William IV would sign a bill for full emancipation throughout all of Great Britain's colonies, including Jamaica and the West Indies, in 1838. Finally, in Jamaica, on August 1st, 1834, the Emancipation Declaration was read from the steps of the old King's House building, which was in Spanish Town, St. Catherine. 1838, the proclamation of the abolition of slavery was read from the steps of the King's House. The structure was destroyed by fire in 1925, leaving only the main eastern facade and the stables. On August 1st, 1834, Britain passed the Slavery Abolition Act outlawing the owning, buying, and selling of humans as property throughout its colonies around the world. The Slavery Abolition Act of 1833 ended slavery in the British Empire on August 1st, 1834, which laid a pathway to freeing over 800,000 enslaved Africans and their descendants in parts of the Caribbean, Africa, South America, as well as Canada. And what was the apprenticeship system in Jamaica in 1834 when slavery was abolished? After the British abolition of slavery on August 1st, 1834, most British colonies imposed an apprenticeship system that would require former slaves to work for their masters without compensation for up to 6 years. So full freedom would have come in 1840. And we know that it came in 1838, so it was canceled 2 years before the actual date. Apprentices across the Caribbean refused to work, often provoking severe retaliation and imprisonment. Apprenticeship was a form of wage labor because ex-slaves were paid for their work, but it was not completely free because they were obligated to work 40 hours for their masters. In return, their former masters would provide them with food, shelter, clothing, and medical care. And of course, they could earn, if this is how the 40-hour work week came in, they could work after 40 hours of working for their quote unquote masters. They could also work someone else and earn wages, and most of them would save that wage and pay their quote unquote masters for their freedom. So it started in 1834, and then, of course, it was supposed to go for 6 years, but it ended in 1838 because of the backlash. There was a lot of issues with that system, and it ended early. It wasn't until 1838 that full emancipation was finally achieved. The emancipation of slavery in Jamaica has a profound impact on the island's history and culture. The emancipation of slavery in Jamaica was a pivotal moment in history, symbolizing the triumph of resilience and the pursuit of freedom. Let us remember this crucial chapter so we may learn from the past and work towards a future of equality and understanding. Midnight of July 31st, 1838, it was reported with great pride that many enslaved persons journeyed to the hilltops to greet the sunrise of Friday, August the 1st, 1838, that symbolized a new beginning in their lives. It was Emancipation Day. As Jamaicans, we continue to celebrate Emancipation Day through the reenactment of reading of the Emancipation Declaration in town centers, particularly Spanish Town, St. Catherine, which was the seat of Parliament when the Emancipation Act was passed in 1838. The Bill of the Abolition of Slavery in British colonies received the royal assent on August 28, 1838. It stated, "Be it enacted that all and every one of persons who, on the first day of August 1834, beholden in slavery within such British colony as aforesaid shall, upon, from, and after the said first day of August 1834, become, and to be all intents and purposes free and discharged from all manner of slavery, and forever manumitted." Was it really freedom at that point? Because we heard about the apprenticeship program where the enslaved was still trying to purchase their freedom during the apprenticeship period. The Africans did not receive full freedom until 4 years later. All slaves over 6 years old were subject to a mandatory 6-year period of apprenticeship. The ex-slaves would work without pay for their former masters for 3/4 of the week, hence 40 hours, in exchange for lodging, food, clothing, medical attendance, and grounds on which they could grow their own provision. They could also, if they choose, hire themselves out for additional wages during the remaining quarter of the week. With this money, an ex-slave could then buy his freedom. It is very ambiguous. Emancipation Day was officially introduced as a public holiday in Jamaica in 1893. The 1st of August celebrations, however, were discontinued in 1962. This was when Jamaica gained its independence. It was then replaced by Independence Day, which was then observed on the first Monday in August. Emancipation Day was later reinstituted in 1997 by then Prime Minister the Honorable Percival James Patterson as a national holiday, which was celebrated on August the 1st. The celebration of emancipation of August 1st, 1838 in the square of Spanish Town, there was a procession of the Baptist Church and congregation of Spanish Town under Reverend J.M. Phillips, with about 2,000 school children and their teachers to the government house. Amid tremendous rejoicing, Governor Sir Lionel Smith read the proclamation of freedom to the large crowd of about 8,000 people who had gathered in the square. The governor's carriage is seen in the foreground.